This is our midterm project, a deep analysis of the historic play Julius Caesar, written by William Shakespeare in 1599. We break down the plot, characters, and the main ideas of the story. Julius Caesar was a bit stubborn. He absolutely refused to listen to his wife about the nightmares she was having. Calpurnia tries to stop him before he goes to the Senate, but a conspirator tricks Caesar's mind into thinking her dream didn't mean anything. A Roman citizen handed him a letter warning him about the conspirators while he was on his way to the Senate, but Caesar refused to read it. He was soon after stabbed by the conspirators and gave up fighting when he seen his friend Brutus among his murderers. Brutus is a Roman senator and the mastermind behind the assassination of Julius Caesar. He tries to convince the people Caesar's killing was for the good, but Antony turns the people of Rome on him. Brutus then forms an army to try and regain Rome's power, but Antony and his army were better skilled in combat. Brutus commits suicide in the end. Cassius is Brutus's brother-in-law. He did not like Caesar and was all for his killing. He believed Caesar to be weak and useless. He tricked Brutus into going along with his plan to kill Caesar. Cassius commits suicide at the end of the story, just like Brutus. Antony is a very strong-minded character. He defeats Brutus and the other conspirators after getting the town to turn on them because of Caesar's killing. Antony tried to convince Caesar before his death that he couldn't trust Cassius anymore, but Caesar didn't listen. Even though Antony is strong in all the ways Brutus is not, he calls Brutus one of the noblest Romans of all. In the end, Antony ends up sharing the Roman power with Caesar's son, Octavius. Octavius is Caesar's adopted son and his successor. He was gone for Caesar's death, but returned to join with Antony to fight Cassius and Brutus. He follows in his adopted father's footsteps and emerges as the commanding figure to take control of the Roman government. Calpurnia is Julius Caesar's wife. She has an ominous dream about Caesar and people bathing in his blood while standing over his dead body. She tries to convince Caesar to stay home, but he eventually leaves and is killed. Portia is Marcus Brutus's wife. She wounds herself to prove to Brutus she is strong and has a lot of courage. She does this to prove to Brutus she is worthy enough to hear about his troubles, then they are interrupted, and she ends up committing suicide because she knows Brutus will be gone forever.
Themes are the fundamental and often universal ideas explored in a literary work. The first theme to discuss is fate versus free will. The play Julius Caesar raises questions about fate in life versus the capacity for free will. Cassius refuses to accept the rising power of Caesar and regards the belief in fate to be nothing more than cowardly. In Act 1, Scene 2, Cassius says to Brutus, "Men at some time were masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings." Cassius desires a return to a more noble, self-possessed attitude toward life, blaming his and Brutus's submissive stance on their failure to assert themselves. Fate and freedom maintain a delicate coexistence throughout the play. Caesar then declares in Act 2, Scene 2, "It seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death is a necessary end, will come when it will come." This is Caesar recognizing that events lie beyond our control. To crouch in fear of these uncontrollable events is to enter a paralysis equal to death. It is to surrender any capacity for freedom that one might possess. Brutus also interprets his and Cassius's defeat as the work of Caesar's ghost. Not only that, but also the force of the people's devotion to him, the legacy of the man who refused the fear of fate, and in his disregard of fate seems to have surpassed it. Rhetoric and power is another theme that shows in the play. Julius Caesar shows a detailed insight to the relationship between rhetoric and power. It is established early in the play that Caesar has a type of absolute authority by the use of words to make things happen. Words also serve to move the hearts and minds of its listeners, as evidence in Act 3 shows. Antony cleverly convinces the conspirators of his desire to side with them under the disguise of a gesture of friendship, when in reality, Antony is actually marking the conspirators for vengeance. In the Forum, Brutus speaks and appeals to the crowd's love of liberty in order to justify the killing of Caesar, and validates further his explanation of the deadly deed by making an ample reference to the honor in which he is generally esteemed. By using his persuasive rhetoric, Antony whips the masses into a frenzy that they don't even realize what's going on. Another key theme in this play is misinterpretation and misreadings. This play deals with a lot of the characters failing to interpret the omens they encounter correctly. For example, in Act 1, Scene 3, the night that precedes Caesar's appearance at the Senate is full of omens, yet all fail to interpret them accurately. Cassius takes them as dangers that Caesar's coronation will bring to the state and warning of the destruction that Cassius has threatened. Another misinterpretation would be Cassius's death. With Pindarus's blasphemous conclusion that Titinius has been captured by the enemy, when Titinius has actually become allies with friendly forces, is a piece of misinformation that leads Cassius to seek death. The inability to read the events and people leads to downfall, and the ability to read both is a key to survival. A misreading that happens in the play where Cassius cheats Brutus and manipulates him into joining the conspiracy with forged letters, knowing that Brutus has a trusting nature and will accept the letters as pleas from the people.
Julius Caesar returns from war and is a hero in Rome. Many believe that Caesar will be the next to wear the crown. His close men Cassius and Brutus fear that Caesar has gained too much power, and they don't want him to become king. Cassius provokes Brutus to help him turn on his friend Caesar, suggesting Brutus is better than Caesar. Cassius and Brutus gather a group of conspirators to help them kill Caesar. After killing Caesar, Brutus speaks to the people of Rome about why they had to kill Caesar. Caesar's good friend Antony also speaks and shows the people of Rome that these men are dishonest and traitors. The people of Rome take to the streets, wanting to kill Brutus and Cassius, and eventually run them out of the city. Antony joins with Caesar's stepson Octavius to form an army to take out Brutus and Cassius. Cassius and Brutus both kill themselves, and Antony and Octavius are left to rule Rome.
Motives are recurring structures, contrast, or literary devices that help to develop and inform the text's major themes. Throughout the duration of the play, omens present themselves to make clear the themes of the misinterpretation of signs and fate. The characters in the play always fail to interpret the signs correctly. Whenever an omen shows up, the audience is immediately reminded of Julius Caesar's impending death. An Elizabethan audience, which is who the play was performed for, would have known the death of Caesar was coming due to them knowing the date of his assassination. It is up to the audience to determine whether the omens announce what is to occur or whether it's a warning of what could happen to the characters if they don't change their behavior. These omens in Julius Caesar tell the dangers to understand and analyze the details of one's world.
Julius Caesar has a raised and serious tone throughout the story. There is little humor throughout the story, and the characters are very serious. Most are willing to die for their principles and beliefs. With many of the characters dying in the story, they never get overly emotional. This pertains to the fact that their choices are merely political rather than personal.
Foreshadowing is a warning or indication of a future event. In this play, foreshadowing has a large presence. One of the most famous quotes used to foreshadow an event is from Act 1, Scene 2, when the soothsayer begs Caesar, "Beware the Ides of March." This omen appears in accounts of ancient historians as well, such as Suetonius and Plutarch. An Elizabethan audience would have known that the Ides of March, or March 15th of 44 BCE, was Caesar's official date of death, and therefore would know what the soothsayer was warning Caesar about. The second appearance of foreshadowing comes at the beginning of Act 3, Scene 1. Caesar mentions that March 15th is come, and the soothsayer replies, "Aye, Caesar, but not gone." The soothsayer is basically telling Caesar to not get cocky about assuming that he's defying his fate. By the end of the scene, Caesar has been brutally stabbed by the conspirators, who bathed their hands in his blood, and Antony has sworn revenge. A third appearance of foreshadowing Caesar's death comes from Calpurnia's vision in Act 2, Scene 2. She was envisioned a statue of Caesar spouting blood while lusty Romans, as stated in the book, are bathing their hands in the blood.